Before we begin, a quick note from the porch. My wife still works downtown and hears all the office gossip, but this one hit closer to home, literally. This isn't some made-up YouTube clickbait. It's what actually happened in Harmony Hills, that cookie-cutter suburb outside Chicago, where the lawns are always 2 inches tall and the American flag is the only flag allowed. Names, addresses, even the street signs have been swapped so nobody gets doxxed, but the pain? That's 100% real. I'm sharing it so you never make the same mistake I almost did, trusting a Karen with a clipboard and a smile. Let's dive in. The second, Pamela Whitaker, everyone called her Karen because, well, she earned it, waltzed into the community center that humid July evening, her pastel blouse starched like a funeral shroud and her pearls clicking like tiny gavels. I knew the whole board was cooked. Not the weather's changing kind of knowing. This was the gut punch freeze you get when you realize the freight train of HOA tyranny is about to slam the brakes on black ice. She didn't shake my hand, didn't ask how my wife was doing after her surgery. Just slid into the head chair like she owned the folding tables and announced, "We're sunsetting all the old tech tonight. Time for fresh blood in Harmony Hills." Sunset. She actually used that word, like the 8 years I'd spent quietly keeping this place from descending in a lawn war hell were just some nostalgic Instagram filter to admire and then delete. I kept my face blank. No blink. No twitch. Just a slow nod while my brain filed away every micro-expression on her Botox-tight forehead. Pamela Whitaker, HOA president for 4 terms running, fresh off a leadership retreat in Austin that probably cost more in dues than my annual property tax. She had that rich suburb syndrome where confidence papered over the cracks where actual competence should live. That afternoon, I pulled the binder from my bottom drawer in the home office. It smelled like toner and quiet, patient revenge. Atlas Compliance wasn't HOA property. It was mine, built in year 2 under my own LLC, Vexer Holdings, while the board was still arguing over whether plastic flamingos counted as excessive decor. Licensed annually, renewed like clockwork. Nobody questioned it because it worked perfectly. No late-night emergency meetings, no missed violation tickets, no cascading fine disasters. If you're liking this story so far, do the channel a solid. Smash subscribe and drop a like. 97% of you scroll right past it, but keeps these real HOA nightmares coming. Back then, I was the guy nobody thanked at the annual block party. The one who remembered to update the violation database before the state compliance audit hit. The one who caught a glitch in the gate access logs during last winter's snow emergency without posting about it on Nextdoor. The one who fixed a server hiccup on a Sunday while my neighbors were grilling. I didn't chase spotlights. I chased precision. I wanted every click on the community portal to spit out certainty. Your grass is 3.2 inches. Here's your automated warning. Your political sign is 3 feet too close to the curb. Ticket generated. But Pamela didn't come from certainty. She came from slogans. Digital uplift for Harmony Hills, she called it, waving diagrams on her iPad like a budget TikTok pastor. A shiny new third-party app out of Austin that looked slick on demo videos, but couldn't even flag a dandelion in a hurricane. She was all designer flats and bravado, and to her, I was the old system. She started making rounds, unrolling her modernization roadmap at every emergency meeting like she was Elon Musk dropping Starlink on the cul-de-sac. Ignored the ops leads. Me and 2 other long-timers who'd kept the peace for years. Didn't even glance at the compliance trackers I'd refined through 3 different presidents. But the moment she dropped the migration plan at the July special session, I caught it. She thought Atlas was just some folder on the shared drive, a thing you drag and drop into the new app. She had no clue the system wasn't code. It was law, bound by license, reinforced by years of IP clauses and fail-safe triggers buried in its digital spine. She asked me all cocky, chin tilted like she was doing me a favor. "Think you can pour it over by Monday, Alex?" I said no. She blinked. "Excuse me?" I shrugged. "Can't port what you don't own." She laughed that fake little Karen laugh, called me dramatic, and reminded the board her position meant the whole neighborhood belonged to her vision, including me. Real original. I didn't argue. Didn't correct her. Just turned back to my laptop, finished logging a minor curb parking violation for Mrs. Henderson on Maple Lane, and emailed myself a fresh copy of the license terms. Not because I needed reminding, but because I knew within a week she'd pull the trigger. And she did. Friday, 3:44 p.m. My phone buzzed with the board invite. No context. Community center. 15 minutes. I took my time. Stopped at the corner store, grabbed a ginger ale, sipped it slow like I had all the time in the world. When I walked in, Pamela was already smiling like she'd won a game she didn't know the rules for. "It's your last day on the advisory committee, Alex," she said, voice dripping fake sympathy. "No hard feelings. We'll send you off with some cookies from the bake sale." I handed her a sealed envelope. She grinned. "What's this?" "A resignation poem." I stayed silent. She tossed it to the junior board secretary, some poor 20-something with stress acne and a notebook full of bylaws. The moment he broke the seal and started reading, the air changed. His eyes narrowed. Lips tightened. He looked at Pamela, then back at the paper. I finished my ginger ale and walked out, past the folding chairs, past the intern pretending not to eavesdrop, past the glassed-in lobby where the rest of the board stood frozen. Pamela saw me, saw the envelope, and her face, God, her face like someone had handed her a live grenade she'd forgotten she pulled the pin on. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. That envelope wasn't paper. It was the match. And the whole neighborhood was already bone-dry kindling. Pamela strutted around the next week like she'd just invented electricity and we peasants had all been running on candlelight and common sense. Monday morning brought a flood of emails titled Project Phoenix and Harmony Hill's New Dawn Initiative, buzzwords that smelled like panic wearing a suit. She called an emergency stand-up in the community center, dubbed it the War Room, and started mapping her genius vision on a whiteboard with neon markers and zero technical understanding. "We're scrapping the old model," she declared, pointing at my old diagram like it was a dinosaur fossil. "New platform from Austin. Everything runs through their sleek interface. Migration starts now." She looked straight at me, sharp and smug. "You'll port your little code into the new system by Monday. It'll be plug and play." I just stared. "Port what exactly?" She waved me off. "The board owns this whole neighborhood. That includes you and whatever you've been tinkering with in your basement." See, Pamela had that classic HOA president syndrome where proximity to power filled in the gaps where actual knowledge should be. She assumed anything that ran smoothly was hers by divine right of the clipboard. Atlas Compliance had operated flawlessly for 8 years. She'd forgotten it was ever built, let alone licensed separately. What she didn't know was that it wasn't just some script zipped on a Google Drive. It was an infrastructure layer, a living system tied to every absurd rule in the bylaws. Grass height sensors, flag distance trackers, holiday light timers, gate access log for vendors, automated fine collection straight to the HOA account. I didn't just write it. I built it like a fortress, and I licensed it through Vexer Holdings every single year. She hadn't even glanced at the paperwork before dropping her little ultimatum. I didn't argue, didn't stomp or shout. I nodded like I'd already seen the avalanche forming behind her and figured yelling wouldn't stop the snow. That night, I opened my fireproof file box in the garage. The original incorporation papers were still crisp. Harmony Hills HOA had agreed years ago that any custom code written under external consultancy remained external property unless transferred in writing. That transfer never happened. They renewed blindly every year, assuming I'd always be the quiet guy fixing things. I smiled, not out of rage, but because I realized Pamela had already pushed the red button. She just hadn't heard the countdown ticking yet. She gave a presentation later that week, laying out the ambitious but achievable launch timeline. Everyone clapped politely. Not me. I was busy quietly archiving logs, deactivating legacy endpoints that weren't needed anymore, backing up my own copies. They whispered I was grumpy. Old school. One of the newer residents on the board muttered I was scared of progress. Nah, I just knew what came next. They expected me to rage quit, give them a dramatic scene to gossip about on the Nextdoor app. But I didn't. I helped draft the migration outlines, smiled in the meetings, let them think I was grateful for the graceful exit Pamela had promised with her fake bake sale cookies. Pamela had no idea every box she checked, every line of my system they tried to mirror, was a trapdoor ready to swing open. And when it did, I wouldn't have to lift a finger. The license would do the talking. Friday, 3:44 p.m. Right on schedule, because of course she'd want a dramatic exit to ruin everyone's weekend. Pamela came sauntering into my driveway like a woman who thought she'd just save the neighborhood by slapping on some new app decals. Hair perfectly highlighted, designer sunglasses perched on her head, 2 board members flanking her like backup dancers, and trailing behind was that same stressed-out secretary with a binder and a discount tie. She beamed at me like we were old golf buddies about to share one last mimosa. "It's your last day on any committee, Alex," she said, patting my shoulder like she hadn't just gutted the enforcement backbone of Harmony Hills 3 days earlier. "Go ahead, order some cookies for the block. We're sending you off in style." Cookies. The way she said it, you'd think she'd invented neighborly love. Like a plate of sugar and a pity pat on the back could erase 8 years of me showing up early to fix gate malfunctions, catching holiday light violations before they escalated, and saving her reputation more times than the board could count. I looked at her, really looked, and thought, "You have no idea what's coming, do you?" I didn't make a speech, didn't scold, just stood up from my porch chair, smoothed my shirt, and opened the bottom drawer of the outdoor storage bench I'd cleaned out already, except for the envelope. White. Sealed. No markings. I handed it to her with both hands. She laughed like I'd just given her a coupon for free Starbucks. "What's this?" "A farewell haiku." She held it up theatrically for the board members. I stayed silent. She turned and tossed it toward the secretary like junk mail. "Make sure it's not a threat," she snorted. The poor kid caught it, fumbled the flap, and started reading. I walked back inside. No ceremony. No tears. Just the quiet hum of the air conditioner and Pamela already chatting about where to cater the next meeting. Chocolate chip or oatmeal raisin. "Susan, what do you think?" I passed Susan on the sidewalk. She gave me a small smile. Not the fake one, the one that said she knew something too. The garage door was already rolling up. I stepped inside, hit the button, and watched it close. That's when I saw her through the window. Pamela standing outside the community center across the street, sleeves rolled on her blouse, glasses low on her nose. She wasn't talking, just standing there watching the secretary read. Then her head snapped toward the kid, then to the envelope. Her face changed. Slack. Color draining. Lips parted like the oxygen had left the cul-de-sac, but her lungs hadn't gotten the memo. She looked straight at my garage door, not angry, in pure, dawning realization. The door closed before I could see what she did next. But I had a pretty good idea. Because what she tossed like a joke wasn't a haiku. It was a formal notification of license termination. Effective immediately. Signed, sealed, backed by every clause they'd never bothered to read. The entire enforcement system was about to go dark, and no amount of bake sale cookies was going to fix it. Monday started with silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that tells you something is very, very wrong in Harmony Hills. No violation alerts pinging the app. No status updates on the community portal. No automated fine emails flowing into residents' inboxes like clockwork. Just blank screens where thousands of petty enforcement actions should have been. At 7:08 a.m., the first flag hit. License verification failed. Contact administrator. Then another. By 7:15, 7 terminals. The board's laptops, the gatehouse tablet, even the Nextdoor link portal were offline. Not delayed. Frozen. Atlas compliance. The same system Pamela had dismissed as legacy junk had finally spoken its first and only protest. It didn't crash dramatically. It didn't light up the neighborhood with red error screens. It simply stopped responding. The tech-savvy board member thought it was a permissions glitch. The secretary thought it was a missed update. Pamela thought, God help us all, That was just some old cron job acting up. They ran diagnostics from the war room. Checked firewalls. Tried soft resets. Virtual rollbacks. Nothing. The compliance module refused every call, denied every credential, and exactly as designed, detected the change in environment. New host. Unauthorized access attempt. No valid license key present. Shut all down. The Austin app team got looped in. Some guy with a headset and too much coffee started throwing acronyms around like confetti. We'll mirror the API to our fallback cluster. Force a tunnel sync. They tried. The system blocked it. Rehosting denied. The smart wrapper didn't just protect the code, it watched where it lived. If the IP signature changed or the license vanished, the whole thing entered defensive posture. Read-only mode, null routing, credential lockdown. Meanwhile, out in the real world, the neighborhood was already feeling it. The gate at the entrance wouldn't open for the FedEx driver, stuck half open like a broken promise. Deliveries piled up on the curb. Mrs. Henderson's lawn service couldn't get their mower truck in because the vendor access log was dead. One regional partner flagged a missed window with a six-figure penalty attached to the HOA landscaping contract. Another resident couldn't verify their pool permit because Atlas handled the embedded compliance sinks. Inside the war room, Pamela was pacing like a college kid who'd lost her phone before finals. It's a hiccup, she kept repeating. Just a hiccup. We'll fix it. But the secretary's face said otherwise. I wasn't there, obviously, but word travels fast on Nextdoor. Susan messaged me a screenshot. Black screen, red banner, white font. License invalid. Contact Vexer Holdings, LLC. That was my LLC. The silence broke by mid-morning. Not inside the center. Out there, residents started posting. Big ones. The kind who pay their dues on time and expect results. One called the delay a breach of the covenants. Another used the word recompense. By noon, 3 scheduled landscaping runs had missed their windows entirely. That alone was going to cost the HOA more than my entire advisory stipend for the past 5 years. The panic hit like dominoes. Board members, the treasurer, even the social chair. Everyone scrambling for an answer while Pamela stood there trying to reboot something she didn't understand. There was a moment around 1:45 when she reportedly asked, "Can't we just uninstall it and start over?" The room went dead quiet. That's when the secretary finally pulled the contract and found the clause. The same one I'd folded into the original agreement back in 2015 when nobody thought the quiet guy in 142 Oak Lane needed supervising. The one that said all replication, migration, or redeployment of the platform required written notarized consent from Vexer Holdings. They had none of that. They had bake sale cookies, a terminated license, and a neighborhood bleeding credibility by the hour. And still, Pamela didn't get it. She was too busy blaming the Austin devs, calling it bad integration. She had no idea the code hadn't failed. It had simply obeyed. It did exactly what it was built to do, refused to serve the people who broke the contract. The binder had been sitting in the board's filing cabinet for years. Bottom shelf, third drawer. Probably used more to prop up someone's coffee mug than for reference. But when the system refused to cooperate, when the Austin app couldn't override even the most basic violation script, someone finally dusted off the old records. Initial contractor agreements, 2015. They flipped through pages marked by coffee stains until they found it. Tucked neatly behind a paper clip, Clause 17. All core logic remains sole property of Vexer Holdings LLC unless assigned through written mutual agreement. All external replication requires notarized consent. That was the line that changed everything. The line they never bothered to read because I never gave them a reason to worry. I didn't flaunt it. I didn't remind them. I just quietly renewed the license each year, kept the fees stable, kept the SLA sheets clean, and gave them every reason to think the world would keep turning as long as they didn't poke the system too hard. But Pamela didn't just poke it. She ripped the battery out, called it obsolete, and threw it in the trash while tweeting about innovation for Harmony Hills. And in doing so, She severed the one thing she couldn't replicate, the license. I didn't need to disable anything. I didn't build some vengeful kill switch or plant a virus. There was no gotcha moment with flashing red lights and a viral video of me laughing. That would have made her feel important. Instead, I built something simple, predictable, legal, because systems don't retaliate. They respond. And Atlas Compliance responded exactly how it was meant to. Without a valid license, it ceased functionality. Not dramatically, not destructively, just clinically, like a power grid shutting down one circuit at a time. No risk, no mess, no lawsuits, just absence. And that absence echoed louder than any tantrum ever could. I heard through Susan that Pamela tried to spin it. We must have missed a patch, she told the board. She barked at the secretary to check the fine print. They did painstakingly. And what they found was that the system had never once been sold, transferred, or internally reassigned. The HOA had simply paid the invoice each year and assumed it was theirs. Wrong. They were licensees. Nothing more. Harmony Hills had been leasing a brain it never bothered to understand. And when they fired the person who held the keys, the brain politely went to sleep. There was no anger in any of this. No need for me to gloat. I was already gone, watching it all unfold from my porch with a cup of iced tea and the Nextdoor app open to track the growing meltdown. The board kept trying to reset the servers, ping the endpoints, reach the vendor, me, with frantic, urgent emails. I didn't reply. My contract had ended. My obligation was over. And the code? It wasn't broken. It was bound. Bound by a clause they had signed in haste a decade ago, and then ignored every year since. The brilliance wasn't in the wording. It was in the silence. Because I didn't need to sabotage them. All I had to do was let the paper do its job. Pamela's voice was already cracking by Tuesday. The woman who once waltzed through meetings with swagger and dumb metaphors about turning the HOA ship around was now pacing the community center like a lab rat on caffeine, trying to reverse engineer a disaster she'd triggered with both hands. By 9 a.m., she had the full board in a panic huddle. One of them, Dennis from the finance committee, messaged me later. She called you a rogue agent. Said you built in tripwires to sabotage the neighborhood. I nearly choked on my tea. Tripwires? The only thing I'd built was a license with rules she didn't bother to read. The system didn't detonate. It complied. That's what scared them more than anything. How calm a fallout was. She dragged the secretary into a side room and demanded they correct the narrative. She wanted a memo calling me malicious. Wanted an investigation, a Nextdoor post, even damage control spin so heavy it probably knocked the earth off its axis. But the secretary didn't blink. You terminated the agreement unilaterally, he said deadpan. The system did what it's licensed to do. That's when the pivot happened. Suddenly, I wasn't the quiet tech guy on Oak Lane. I was a malicious actor, a shadow IT problem, a threat to Harmony Hills values. The board member who had handed me my exit cookies last Friday was now fielding questions from the treasurer about her process. The same stressed secretary who laughed at my envelope was now scheduling 3 back-to-back calls with the HOA attorney and outside counsel. And Pamela called me 3 times. Voicemail after voicemail, each one more desperate than the last. The first sounded annoyed. Look, this isn't funny. Just call me back. We'll figure it out. The second tried charm. Okay, so maybe there was a misunderstanding. No big deal. Let's just talk. The third was quiet. Short. Just one sentence. Let's talk. Name your price. I didn't answer. But I didn't have to. Because the Chicago landscaping contractor did. They froze their Q4 maintenance cycle just like that. A multi-$1,000 contract put on ice, citing inconsistent rule validation and breach of service terms. No system meant no confirmation. No confirmation meant no mowing. Then the Western cul-de-sac followed. A major pool service company pulled their December allocation mid-season. That penalty alone cracked 5 figures with late fees stacking daily. Word reached the full board. And for the first time, Pamela wasn't in the center of the room anymore. She was in the corner trying not to meet anyone's eyes. The same people who'd once applauded her aggressive modernization were now asking quieter, colder questions. Who approved the migration? Who signed off on the contract termination? Who verified ownership of the software? No one said my name. They didn't have to, because at that point I wasn't the problem anymore. I was the proof. Proof that arrogance without documentation is just firewood waiting on a match. Pamela kept trying to claw her way back into control. She suggested a patch. She called the Austin team. She even tried to convince the attorney to just write a new agreement and move forward. Like you can duct tape over a legal hole big enough to drive a landscaping truck through. But the truth had settled in. Every lie she told echoed louder the longer I stayed silent, and I planned on staying very, very silent. By Wednesday morning, my inbox had turned into a job fair. First came a private equity firm out of Boston that manages gated communities. Slick, efficient, their recruiter tossing around buzzwords like optimization vertical and agile realignment. Like I hadn't just watched a multi-$1,000 meltdown triggered by that exact word salad. They dangled a consulting title and a bonus big enough to renovate the garage. But it felt thin. Next was a competitor, HOA across town, one of the same groups that used to circle Harmony Hills bids like sharks. Their message was bolder. We've been watching your work. We'd like to bring that expertise to our back-end architecture. A polite way of saying, oh, we always wanted Atlas compliance, and now that it's off the shelf, maybe we can cut a deal. Flattering, but opportunistic. Then came a third. Vector Communities Incorporated. No spam. Just a direct email from the COO, Annabelle Thorne. Subject line, not for a fight, for the future. The body was short. No attachments. Just a meeting link and one sentence. We don't want revenge. We want results. So I joined the call. No fluff. No pitch deck. Just her face, a spreadsheet open, and the calm tone of someone who knew exactly what mattered. Your system has architecture we respect, she said. You kept compliance running without major outages for nearly a decade. That kind of continuity is rare. What we're offering isn't just a role, it's autonomy. Build it your way. Just tell us where the friction points are. No questions about Pamela. No probing about Harmony Hills. Just a clean slate and mutual understanding. Precision over politics. She sent over the terms that afternoon. 6-figure signing bonus. 5-year contract. Full architecture ownership. No clawbacks. No shadow clauses. And best of all, no culture fit interviews, no trust building exercises, no slides about ping pong tables that were really unpaid overtime in disguise. Just work, the good kind. I didn't play hard to get. I signed. And after that I went for a walk. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet loop around the lake near my place. The leaves were starting to turn, burnt orange, deep crimson. That air you only get right before the first frost when the world feels between seasons. I breathed it in and thought, this is what a clean exit feels like. People kept asking if I planned to go after Pamela, sue her, expose her, leak something. But I didn't need to. She was already sinking in the quicksand she'd stirred up herself. And me? I was already 3 steps ahead. No press release. No headline. Just movement. Because sometimes the sharpest revenge isn't vengeance. It's irrelevance. And Pamela had just become exactly that. By day 6, the silence had turned to whispers, and the whispers to full damage control. The Harmony Hills boardroom, the one with the curved fake wood table and the 2 expensive chairs nobody ever truly relaxed in, was finally packed. Every seat taken. Every face tense. No catered breakfast. No friendly backslaps. No small talk. Just that low, oppressive air you get when the consequences finally walk in wearing business casual. Richard, no wait, the actual HOA treasurer, Mr. Greer, sat at the head. He looked like he hadn't slept. Not the kind of tired that comes from a long week, but the kind that seeps into your bones when you realize the crown you're wearing is made of HOA bylaws and fragile egos. The attorney started the breakdown. No sugarcoating. Just facts like hammer strikes. System ownership never transferred. License lapsed immediately upon termination. No succession clause. No fallback contract. No technical or legal authority to replicate. And client penalties. As of that morning, over $50,000 in climbing landscaping fines, 2 frozen contracts, 3 paused renewals, 5 incoming claims for breach, no enforcement, no gate access, no confidence. It didn't take much to see the pattern. The system worked when it was licensed. It stopped when it wasn't. The end. The treasurer tried to offer a slide deck with red graphs and mitigation plans, but the room waved it off. Mr. Greer looked around, then asked the one question no one wanted to touch. Who told Pamela she could terminate the advisory contract without checking ownership? Silence. Board members stared at their printed emails. One had scribbled standard offboarding in the margins like that would explain anything. The attorney avoided eye contact. Even the usually loud VP of landscaping sat with his fingers templed like he was praying for a miracle. But Pamela's chair was empty. She hadn't shown up. No explanation. No delay. Just gone. Mr. Greer didn't say her name again. Didn't scream. Didn't assign blame. He just sat there, shoulders slightly slumped, as if the full weight of inherited HOA arrogance had finally landed where it belonged. Then he stood. No ceremony. Just that slow push of the chair. Reverse whatever you can. A pause. And next time we verify before we celebrate. The meeting ended. No vote. No applause. Just a handful of board members realizing that the golden Karen with a leadership retreat certificate had detonated the neighborhood's spine because no one bothered to ask a single legal question before handing her the clipboard. The next morning, Pamela's name was quietly removed from the HOA website org chart. Not with an announcement. Just gone. No farewell post. No damage control memo. Just a blank space where her title used to be, like the system had quietly auto-corrected itself. And maybe in a way it had. 1 week later, the envelope arrived. Heavy paper. Raised lettering. No return address. But the seal was unmistakable. Harmony Hills, H.O. I didn't rush to open it. Let it sit on the entry table for a day, right next to a half-drunk mug of tea and the potted basil I kept forgetting to water. When I finally sliced it open, I wasn't surprised. They wanted the license back. Not with apology. Not with grace. Just corporate formalities and legalese. We are prepared to discuss terms for reinstating the core compliance license previously maintained under agreement with Vexer Holdings, LLC. There it was. No dancing. No begging. Just a white flag sealed in envelope weight cardstock. I didn't respond. My attorney did. We tripled the fee. No maintenance clause. No on-call support. No strategic consulting. No tweaks. No hand-holding. Just a cold lease. Non-exclusive. Locked terms. Pay or pause. That's it. The reply came 2 days later. They agreed. No counter. No haggling. Just a signed acceptance and a wire confirmation tucked inside a boilerplate PDF, so dry it might as well have been carved from dust. Pamela's name wasn't on anything. No CC. No BCC. Not even a per the president's request. Just a silent redaction like she'd never existed in the first place. I didn't ask what happened to her. Didn't need to. Her absence said more than any email ever could. That kind of shame doesn't exit through the front gate. It slinks out the side, hoping no one's looking. And as for the board, no call. No apology. Just a notification the next morning that Mr. Greer had added me on LinkedIn. No message. No emoji. Just a connection request sitting there like a final page with nothing left to write. I accepted. Then I closed my laptop, poured another cup of tea, and opened the onboarding deck for Vector Communities. Their dev team had sent over an outline for integrating Atlas Compliance 2.0 into a new dual route certification module. I read through it slowly. No noise. No panic. Just clean work. Somewhere in the background, the neighborhood was still arguing about who caused what and how it all spiraled. But not me. I was already building the next system. This one wouldn't need a clause to survive. It would thrive on silence. And that's the thing about quiet residents in HOA hell. We don't need spotlights. We don't need revenge videos. We just need the paper to do its job. Pamela learned that the hard way. The rules didn't die because of some dramatic hack. They died because she forgot the oldest law in the book. Never fire the guy who wrote the rule book, especially when he still owns the copyright. Harmony Hills is slowly crawling back online now, paying triple what they used to, but the power dynamic? That's permanently flipped. The lawns are still 2 inches tall. The flags are still only American. But the next time a Karen with a clipboard decides to sunset the wrong system, she'll remember my name. Or at least the license number. And somewhere out here on the porch, with my new contract signed and my tea getting cold, I'll be smiling. Not because I won, but because I never had a fight. The system did it for me. And in the end, that's the sweetest justice of all.